Hi, everyone. I am David Lepton from The Reckoning, July 4th, 2030. Welcome to our 13th in a series of weekly podcasts. This episode covers why knowing history is so important. I have a special request. If you have enjoyed my earlier podcasts, please subscribe and refer them to your friends and colleagues. There are as many definitions of history as there are people who care to define what it is. History is a narrative that we accept and believe and trust to the point where it guides our present and future actions. It is a story that binds us together and gives meaning to our lives. It is an ever-flowing river through time that carries us all along. That river is only in our minds and must be passed on from generation to generation. If that narrative is not passed on to our children and grandchildren, we will have failed to keep and sustain our republic. It will wither and die. Here is one of my favorite definitions of history by Cicero. That's in 46 BC. Quote, "To be ignorant of what occurred before you were born is to remain always a child. What is the worth of the human life unless it is woven into the life of our ancestors by the records of history?" End of quote. Okay. What are all those deeds and records that our ancestors left us? Washington crossing the Delaware River? The Civil War? The Gettysburg Address? The attack on Pearl Harbor? The attack on New York City? What are the main documents and words that bind us? The Declaration of Independence? The Constitution of the United States? Who are our enduring national heroes? Washington? Lincoln? Franklin Roosevelt? What are the ties binding us together? What did Abraham Lincoln mean by, quote, the mystic chords of memory, end of quote? Let us start with those mystic chords of memory. Here is the full quotation from Lincoln's first inaugural address on March 4th, 1861. Quote, "The mystic chords of memory stretch from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land, yet will swell the chorus of the Union when again touched, as surely as they will be, by the better angels of our nature." End of quote. History is not only about battlefields or memories of them, it also encompasses our people and the words that made us a nation, most notably the words in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Lincoln started with a reference to battlefields to appeal to people's patriotism, since he and the nation was staring into the grim prospect of the dissolution of the Union, with 7 states having already seceded from the United States. The prospect of a civil war was on everyone's mind. His words were and remain a powerful reminder that the American Union is a fragile creation. We would all do well to bear in mind these words, those mystic chords of memory that must run through every generation, ours included, if the Union is to hold. The ties that bind us are a commitment to maintain the principles, conflicts of interest embedded in our founding documents of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. This podcast is not intended as a civics class, but it is a reminder of what we already know and sometimes forget. We might even say suppress in the heat of presidential elections. We have already covered in our earlier podcasts many of the differences in political positions and visions that divide our country. We now turn to those founding principles that made us what we are. These principles are so important that every president, every 4 years, must promise to, quote, protect and preserve and defend the Constitution of the United States, end of quote. It is not only the president that promises to defend the Constitution, we do as well, when we take the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and to the Republic. Remember all those days in school from grades kindergarten to 12? That's what our pledge is about. Stay with me on this last point. While it is the primary duty of the President of the United States to protect and defend the Constitution, it is ours as well. Our basic commitment is to the Constitution and not to a particular political party. We should bear this in mind when we vote. We should support those who will remember that the primary duty of our country is to support our republic. Vote for a party and the Constitution and the candidate of your choice, and keep in mind the larger interest of our republic and its sustainability into the future. For your reference, here is a list of the principles embedded in the U.S. Constitution. 1. Limited government. 2. Republicanism. 3. Checks and balances. 4. Federalism. 5. Separation of powers. 6. Popular sovereignty. Here is a list of the principles embedded in our Declaration of Independence. Equality, inalienable rights, consent of the governed, and the right to revolution. I only list rather than expound on these 10 principles of our republic, since they are easily located and explained on the internet. Do the searches or ask your AI chat friend to fill in the details of our history. Enjoy the surfing and rediscover our country and what makes us all Americans. If it were in my power, I would require that every voter in every house have a refrigerator magnet listing the 10 principles of our republic. 4 for the Declaration of Independence and 6 for the Constitution. These magnets would be distributed free. The next time you see a commercial, a flyer, or receive a visit from your friendly political canvasser, just think or say, "No thanks, I have the 10 principles I need to make my choice in this year's election." Let's return to Cicero's definition of history at the beginning of this podcast and the records of history that he refers to. To fill in any gaps in our knowledge of the records of our history and the lives of our ancestors, I recommend that you read the Oxford History of the United States, or the Oxford Companion to the History of the United States. This brings us to a related issue of who we want to govern us. This topic will be covered in our next podcast. Goodbye for now, and thank you for listening in today. Do remember to subscribe to my podcasts and refer them to your friends and colleagues. You will hear from me, David Lepton, in a week's time. You can access my ideas and thoughts by visiting Amazon.com and search for my ebook, The Reckoning, July 4th, 2030.